welcome to yet another round of the FE conversations on the ESG imperative for businesses, where we have Dr. Mukund Rajan in conversation each time with leading industrialists and thought leaders. His guest today is Dr. Krishna Prasad Chigurupati, the chairman and managing director of Granules India, a leading maker of some of the drugs that form the first line of treatment for fever, pain, and for diabetes. Dr. Mukund Rajan, as many would know, especially in the ESG arena, is the chairman of eCube Investment Advisors, a first of its kind platform created in 2019 to catalyze environment, social, and governance changes in corporate India. Prior to this, he held a number of senior executive positions through his 23-year career with the Tata Group, where he served as the first brand custodian of the Tata Group, Chief Ethics Officer, Chairman of the Tata Global Sustainability Council, and member of the Group Executive Council at Tata Sons. Dr. Rajan's third book, Outlast: How ESG Can Benefit Your Business, co-authored with Dr. Colonel Rajiv Kumar, has just been published by HarperCollins. Over to you, Dr. Rajan.
Thank you very much. My book, Outlast: How ESG Can Benefit Your Business, argues that a focus on ESG can help businesses to build resilience, gain competitive advantage, and achieve greater returns in the long run. My guest today, Krishna Prasad Chigurupati, the founder and managing director of Granules India. I am looking forward to getting his perspective on the ESG imperative. Krishna Prasad has had an amazing journey in more ways than one. Let me elaborate. He and his wife, Uma, hold the record of being the only couple to have participated in marathons at both the North Pole and the South Pole in the same year. In 2015, the couple created the record of becoming the only pair to have participated in 7 half marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. On the business side, having entered the pharma industry in 1984, Krishna Prasad has built one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world by volume, including one of the largest tablet manufacturing capacities in the world. Granules India today is synonymous with well-known medication products like paracetamol, metformin, and ibuprofen. Welcome, Krishna Prasad. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to open by asking you why you think there is so much more interest of late in ESG, and what role you think COVID has had to play in this.
The interest of it has been tremendous. And while many companies in the past have truly believed in ESG and have really benefited from it by following the principles of ESG, ESG always need not mean an outflow. It can actually become profitable for the company and benefit the company. While these have been happening, many companies really did not understand the importance. But today, with almost most of the investors signing the United Principles of responsible investment, there's no way that if people want to raise money and at a reasonable price, they have to follow the ESG principles. And this is very critical. And that's what spurred on people into thinking about ESG. And having started the journey, many people are realizing the benefits of ESG. And I'm sure it's going to become not a work for raising funds, but I'm sure it's going to become a way of life for many people as they see the benefits. And coming back to COVID has woken us up. Nobody could imagine a disaster of this scale can ever hit us. And not even in anybody's wildest dreams, this could have been imagined. But this is just an awakening. And the world has changed so much. Many more disasters like this in different areas could happen. And in fact, Dr. Rajan, I think in your book, Outlast, you have illustrated so many dangers that could happen to this world. I don't think I have to go into so many things. But unless we act today and we act in a very urgent manner, there are going to be more and more disasters. And speed is the essence today. And while the social and the governance parts are very, very important, which actually help in business, the social part encouraged community and a very motivated workforce definitely does a lot of help. But environment is the key today. And people have started realizing the importance of trying to save our environment.
Thank you. I think critical points on the environmental backlash and really the kind of importance which now investors are giving to the subject. So thank you. Points well made. The role that vaccines have played in mitigating the COVID challenge has certainly increased the spotlight on the Indian pharma sector. And so a question I have is, does the focus on ESG and the environment really help or hinder the cause of Indian pharma? You do hear complaints from some players about the close scrutiny they're coming under, especially from overseas regulatory bodies, and the attendant compliance costs. So is it all negative, or does the focus on ESG offer benefits when Indian pharma companies try and benchmark themselves with international competition?
So I assume you're talking of regulatory inspections with regard to ESG and not with regard to GMP compliance like the US FDA. So if my assumption is
well, actually both, because I think when you hear about regulatory scrutiny, there is this tendency to think that a lot of the scrutiny is coming more from overseas just now, perhaps, and some of this is imposing attendant costs, which some companies at least a little bit struggling with.
Okay, my comment, I think both can be combined actually. And compliance in any way always helps a company. And in fact, we never knew too much about compliance in the past and GMP principles or environmental principles or governance principles. So we never gave importance to that. And today changing that is not easy. That involves a lot of cost. And retrofitting the organizations is not going to be easy. People who have woken up in the past, especially we at Granules India have given a lot of importance to GMP compliance. Right from the beginning of our journey, we gave a lot of importance, and I'm very, very proud to say that we are one of the very few companies which never had any issues with any FDA type of organizations. And coming back to the combined subject, if regulatory compliance, all compliances are built into the design of a system and the processes, they need not really be expensive. So it all depends on our thinking, how we want to go about it. And I firmly believe this can really help us. And it's only to help ourselves. I don't think there's any negativism about the regulatory inspections, authorities coming and having a close look. In fact, I'm sure it's going to help us realize we all make mistakes. They point out. Nobody's going to punish you. You learn from those inspections, and you should be willing to correct yourself.
Terrific. So I think mindset is really important.
And the more important thing is, rather than thinking it's negative,
correct.
ESG should be the pillar of any business philosophy or strategy. One of the main pillars. As long as these are the pillars, the organizations will strive. And it's just not pharma. Any company, any business, these have to be the pillars of the strategy.
Right. And therefore, today when in India, there's all this talk with the industry associations and the government on the ease of doing business in India. From your perspective, I'm assuming then you don't see any contradiction or risks in looking for improving ESG performance, while at the same time seeking perhaps different or reduced compliance or disclosure requirements. How do you see these two agendas converging?
The disclosure requirements initially may look like a lot of work. But We have gone through many of these issues in the past, and typically, like I would say, the FDA inspections, we thought it was insurmountable. But once you design your processes, it becomes a very routine thing, the report. And I think ease of doing business doesn't mean reduced compliances. Compliances have to be done, but there has to be reasonable expectation of compliances. It should not be something that which people cannot really follow. So as long as there are reasonable compliances are going to, and reporting is going to help. We by the way, we are evolving. I don't think we are perfect. There are a lot of focus has come from our side also now, and I'm glad we are doing it. And no way I'm trying to preach. This is my learning.
I think these are very important statements from industry leaders who've, in a sense, been there and done that. And I think particularly for some of the members of the mid-market who are now beginning to grapple with some of these issues, I think it's a terrific learning and insight that you're providing, that all of this is integrated. And it's best that you take it on board sooner rather than later. And then it actually really benefits your business down the line. So if one had to take a closer look at Granules India in particular, what kinds of priorities have you set for yourself for the rest of this decade, both from a ESG agenda, but specifically on the environmental dimension? What kinds of priorities do you think are going to be very important for your company through the rest of this decade?
First of all, for us, business growth and ESG are interlinked. We don't treat them as separate issues. And we want to have a healthy growth, profitable growth by following certain of these principles. While the social aspect and the governance aspect are very, very important. But for Granules today, while we concentrate on the other two, the most important thing is the environmental aspect. And like I said initially, now we have to work with a sense of urgency. We don't have too much time. And some of the statistics or some of the predictions I hear what are going to happen in 2030 and or some of the promises or commitments made by different countries for 2050, and also some predictions about global warming, to what will happen to water rising and cities getting submerged. It's terrifying. All these may not be, we all would like to believe they may not happen, but I think it's always better to be prepared. So there needs to be a sense of urgency, and we have to cut down our carbon emissions. And of course, that would definitely lead to a reduction of temperature warming. And so we are working on, for our part, there's nothing much we can do beyond our companies and what our activities are. So what we are trying to do is, okay, whatever technologies we have today, whatever plants we have today, we're trying to make them as carbon efficient as possible. But retrofitting these plants is always not that easy. The only thing we can do possibly is bring in some energy efficiencies. And one of the things we have done close to implementing is getting in green energy into our plants. And green energy can really, one of the most important sources of carbon emissions in any manufacturing operation is the energy. It may not happen in our site, but it's happening somewhere else. So we are working on green energy, and green energy in the truest sense. I'm not talking about green energy by the solar energy, which comes during the day and you supplement it with something else in the night. So we are looking at working with some companies which are specializing or working on storage systems. And I don't think I should name the companies. There are a few companies working, and they will be able to give us 100% 24-hour green energy. And we are closely working with them. And we are also trying to set up some complexes along with them where they want to produce green hydrogen, and we will do something else. It's like, it has to be integrated. Otherwise, these things cannot happen. So that's what we are doing right now on bringing in green energy. That can reduce our carbon footprint quite a bit. But other than that, all our new plants, our new projects, whatever we are working on, is going to be based on very innovative thinking, simple innovative thinking. I'm not talking about complex innovative thinking. And we are working on different processes. And this has been going on for, I saw these processes as a way of bringing down costs, not as a way of bringing down carbon footprint in the past. then it so worked out that the processes, the efficiencies we bring in by cutting down number of reactions, cutting down energy needs, and cutting down the use of many reagents. Simple technologies that existed long. Flow chemistry existed in other industries, not in pharma. Biocatalysis was there, but not widely practiced in pharma. And the latest is organocatalysis. So we have to embrace these things. So organocatalysis is a little new, but we'll have to learn about it. We have to set up a separate center of excellence for such areas. And whatever we have done now on a few molecules has shown us very promising results. I will just give the example of one molecule, which is the world demand is about 50,000 tons and widely used. And the general carbon dioxide generation for this product per kg by practices followed in India today is more than 30 kgs of carbon dioxide per kg of the product produced. And when I say carbon generation, it's from cradle to our gate. I'm not talking about what happens in our factory. From the origin of product, let's say a benzene or a propylene, we calculate the carbon footprint from there and we see what it means. So we were able to cut down so many steps. Energy has come down so much through flow chemistry. And also it's a mix of flow chemistry and biocatalytic reactions. And we were able to bring it down to around 11 or 12. Okay, wow. Almost 1/3. And there's still scope for improvement. When we are able to really garner all this green energy, we can still cut it down. And again, what should we do with this? Let's say there's a 10,000 ton plant. A 10,000 ton plant will generate something like about into 12. So 120,000 tons of carbon dioxide. And if 1 acre of a properly designed social forestry can sequester 100 tons of carbon per acre, and it's possible. I mean, I'm not saying that I've done it. You have to start with some assumption, and I think it's very much possible. So all you need to sink in all the carbon dioxide that you have produced for making this 10,000 tons of product, which is 1/5 of the world requirement, is only 1,200 acres of land. And with so much, I think it's about 30 to 40% of India's total land mass is not being utilized as deforestation going on. If only we can work on afforestation of these things in the right way. I see, at least what all products we produce in the next 1 decade, it's possible. It's a big statement I'm making. It's possible to be carbon neutral. Everybody makes these statements. I'm a little cautious, but it is possible. And we have to aim for it. You have to have a dream. You just cannot say it's not possible. So we're working on these things. And definitely I see that there's going to be great progress. And finally, what we realized, Dr. Rajan here, is by doing all this, it's not only reducing the carbon footprint. As of today, the customers, while everybody, and by the way, this sort of afforestation or whatever planning I did can bring down the temperature there itself, not only putting the carbon inside, 2 degrees lesser. And while customers today are not going to pay you a lot of money or an extra money for being lesser, for producing lesser carbon or being close to carbon neutral, but the day is not far off where customers will definitely pay you a premium. But even as of today, following the right technologies and creating least waste. See, what is reduced? What is carbon footprint? Finally, you're creating waste somewhere. If you reduce waste, your efficiencies go up and your costs come down. And we have seen costs can be brought down by 15% at least. By just
15%?
50% on the products we are working on. I cannot speak in general for everything. Few products we are working on, I could say that. And it's not only the carbon footprint, the energy needs, even the space needed. Even that can be brought down. So everything adds up. Everything adds up. So there's a lot of advantage, and our focus for the next decade is to concentrate on environment while not neglecting the other areas. And the The second passion that I personally have after, by the way, the environment has become a passion in the last few years, and I'm learning a lot. The other passion I had for quite some time was on the social side was skill development of people.
Right.
We pick up children from villages who have just passed their intermediate. We put them into a little academy of ours. And first month, we give them clean clothes from villages, shoes. We teach them how to polish their shoes, how to iron their clothes. And then we teach them all ethics. We teach them how to speak English. We teach them yoga. We teach them physical activities. First month is only spent on this. And second month onwards, for another 3 months, we teach them certain skills. And after we certify them, they're free to go elsewhere and work, or they are free to come and work with us. We are always welcome. They're welcome to work with us. And we provide them after this ability to join online courses for their BSc degrees. We pay them, little kids from villages who are 19 years, 20 years. They come, they're earning money, sending money to their parents. We house them in a hostel. And they're also getting a degree in 4 years. So that's another thing we are doing on the social side, of course, the community and all we do, but let me not take up too much time on that. And governance, of course, is a must today. There's no way getting out of governance today with all the reporting you have to do.
Right.
And you don't want to beat the law.
Terrific. Amazing insights. Thank you very much for that. And in fact, my next question is going to be about something you just touched upon, and I'd like you to reflect on the broader importance for Indian industry. This is the question on really how important spending on research and development and innovation is for ESG improvement across the landscape in India. Are you seeing Indian businesses give enough attention to this? And from your own experience, some of the process innovation you just talked about, for instance, what would you like to see Indian businesses doing more of in the same context?
There's a lot of R&D spend happening in India, but it's on developing new products, and especially I can talk of pharma, challenging patents and these sort of things. So many things happen that way. But I don't think the main emphasis is on environment and reducing carbon footprint. So people are waking up to that now. And again, it has to be innovative solutions. It's not the typical solution. People have to think differently. And then you need freer minds. And sometimes I wonder, a non-technical person or a person with lesser knowledge like me can think a little differently than the experts. So innovation and differentiated thinking and disruptive technologies are needed. And all these things don't need great R&D spends, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Simple ideas can really generate some innovative solutions. Simple ideas are not normally, I would say, recognized. So if we can change our way of thinking, starting from the bottom and with simple ideas trying to innovate, I think there's large potential. And to answer your question, huge amounts of money is not really required for R&D. Yes, R&D is important and you have to spend, but these are monies that can be absorbed by all the corporates. Instead of accumulating cash in the books, I'm sure, and serving the shareholders, there are other stakeholders for the organization. Humanity is a stakeholder. I think you have to also serve them. And money can go into R&D for improving these processes, and it's not something which companies cannot absorb.
Terrific. And speaking again from experience, I think it's great to hear that, because often you hear the other side of the story from some companies about the capital that will be required and other capital allocation priorities and various excuses why enough can't be done. But I think you've just busted some of those myths.
Maybe this is short-term growth versus long-term sustainable growth is the difference.
Correct.
As long as long-term sustainable growth is your target, R&D and all these things are not going to be a hindrance. Okay, you take a short-term hit, it doesn't matter.
Right, right. So on that point about short-term versus long-term, how confident are you about more broadly the pharma sector's competitiveness in the value chain across the globe? where do you see the big opportunities, and how well placed do you think Indian companies are to address those opportunities across the globe?
I will not talk about R&D, new molecules, and discovery and all. Let's talk of the world today. What the world needs, in addition to new drugs, is also cheaper, accessible drugs and generics. And the supply chains of generics are very complex today. While people used to think India is the medicine provider to the world, it's not really true. We lost our advantage. We used to make penicillins in the past, Hindustan antibiotics. I remember in my childhood, 69, it was like a golden company. Actually, my father used to be on the board of Hindustan Antibiotics. I used to hear so much about it. And where are we today on penicillins? We have lost our advantage. It's gone away. And it's when it was needed, if only the government supported Indian companies, could it be public sector or private companies, it could have been a different story. So there was a time when the government was thinking like efficiency should survive. If somebody is selling it cheaper, why should we make it here? But we lost advantage. We played into the hands of other people, other countries. And similarly with intermediates, we used to make our own intermediates in the past because it was cheaper making elsewhere. They were making it on scale, and they have mastered certain technologies. So we all depended on them. And today, without external supply of intermediates, we are nowhere today. And people say we make our own intermediates, but surprisingly, the key starting materials for those intermediates also come from somewhere else. So the supply chain is dependent on our big neighbor, mostly today for pharma. But India has the capability and the ability to change all this. We have to start from base materials, easily available materials, let it be benzene, toluene, whatever. And of course, some reagents will be needed, but use different types of chemistries to cut down steps, and you may not need some of these intermediates at all. And some of these intermediates which have specialized technology platforms, if we master those platforms, we can make those intermediates on scale also. So what I see today is some companies are going to master certain technology platforms in future, or maybe the right way, in my opinion, is few companies should master on certain things. They should be the best in them. And definitely, we can be self-sufficient over a period of time. Today, dependency is there, interconnect of dependency on other regions are there. It will always be there, but we can cut down the dependency to quite a bit. And it's again the will to things. And again, my feeling always was, while the PLI schemes and all were a great idea of the government to motivate, and definitely they've been helping to a certain extent. I always feel if only the government, see, PLI scheme today, you give 10% or whatever. Tomorrow, some other country also can give another PLI scheme of 20%. So where are you ending up? So the only way to beat people is with technology. And if government can incentivize innovation, it's very simple said and done. Okay, but if there is some way that innovation can be incentivized in either way, income tax, whatever ways, need not be cash subsidy. So I think things will change faster. But otherwise, in a decade, I see that there will be a lot of self-sufficiency in India.
Great. Now, again, fascinating insights. And in fact, I'm going to end up now with my last question, which takes forward a point you just touched upon, which is the role of government. And one area one sort of senses where Indian companies tend to be less forthcoming compared to their peers in developed markets is really acknowledging the value of advocacy. So I'd like to ask you, in conclusion, what role do you see for advocacy, in particular with the government, in shaping the ESG agenda in India? And of course, in the context of the pharma sector, if you could also highlight any priorities that Granules India has set for its engagement with the regulators and with government, that would be terrific.
There are very good associations which could do this, but as a company and as a person myself, I am a slightly withdrawn person. I don't go advocating many things, and normally, unless asked for, I don't go and advise anybody. And definitely, I have very little contacts with the government. But however, if any time I'm invited to share a little bit of my experiences with anybody and give some suggestions, I'll be more than happy to do that. I would feel that I have fulfilled some responsibility if I can do. Whether it's implemented or not, even the very thought that I have given my bit would give me great satisfaction.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I hope the government takes you up on that offer. And I think you have so much to share with not just the government, but with your peers and others in industry. So I hope they take very seriously a lot of the commentary you've just offered and the unique insights you've been willing to share. That's about all the time we have today. The ESG landscape is changing swiftly in India. And as we heard from Krishna Prasad, this offers many ways in which forward-looking businesses can leverage their capabilities to shape the market and gain competitive advantage. Business as usual will not be an option going forward, and there will be a clear reset thanks to the new ESG paradigm. We will have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Thank you so much, Krishna Prasad, for your time. Thank you, viewers, and goodbye for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajan. It was a very great pleasure interacting with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.